This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, Rabbi. Shalom Aleichem. Hope everyone's having a good day. Rabbi Yisrael explained the difficult situation that we find ourselves in. Namely, we could hear reports of other people's early demise or death, chas v'shalom, and it doesn't really make an impact on our heart. And the reason for that is because our heart is clogged up. It's very callous and insensitive. And our heart has become jaded. And we are not moved by things we see about other people. And furthermore, there's a concept that when we repeat Avera, it becomes psychologically to us as if it's permitted. And for these reasons, we do not think we're on the wrong path. And Rabbi Yisrael says there's only one way out. And then Rabbi Yisrael turns to understand two types of Averos. The first type of Avera we discussed is desire. Something looks good to eat, something looks good to look at, something looks good to do. Despite the fact that we know the certain repercussions, we cannot overcome our temptation. This type of sin has a parallel in human affairs. Namely, there are people who they eat unhealthy food, even though they know it's going to kill them. Nevertheless, most people in the world do not have the discipline to turn away from whether it's fatty foods, whether it's foods that have chemicals in it, whether it's sweets. All of these things are dangerous. Nevertheless, they look good, and they're not going to kill me today. So tomorrow, you block it out of your mind. That's this type of sin, the sin that is inspired by desire, has a parallel in human affairs. However, there's another kind of sin, and this category has no parallel. Achein Rabba Ras Adamaretz. However, man's evil is very difficult in this world. How great is the evil of man in this world? Ein doresh b'tzedek. There's no one who seeks righteousness. Ve'ein maskil b'yiras Hashem. No one who contemplates the fear of God. Likbaya itim seduros ba'amal hayira. To set times to immerse and toil in thoughts of Yiras Shamayim. Put it this way, many people spend a lot of time learning. Most people don't spend time every day thinking about what the punishment of the afterlife is. It's not a pleasant thought. It's not something that makes you feel good. And so who does it? Nobody does it. Lidlois mei tvuna, to draw the waters of understanding, mei ha'amuna, from the belief, hanechba, that hides umustaras and is concealed b'machbuei halev, in the recesses of the heart. And laharchiva, to broaden the amuna, ulasada, to support it, lasis latoikav ha'ois, to give it strength, lasim HaMussar al shichma, to put the responsibility on the shoulder. Nobody takes the time to bear the responsibility to think about this. And to contemplate the repercussions, so that limshal al hoivarim, to be able to rule over one's limbs, of al yifritzu gidra, so they don't break through their boundaries, u k'torah yasa, and to act like in accordance with what the Torah demands us. Zehu hasug hasheni. This is the second category, and he's about to say what it is. Dugma zeh hadavar, a parallel to this, lo matzanu b'nyanei ha'olam, we cannot find in, call it the real world. Ein ish shetzaras mrachafes mol panav. In other words, let's say this is someone who he's suffering tragedy for his the way he's conducting himself in this world, in financially. Let's say a person, he's not really working, so his family's suffering financially, or he's not taking care of himself at all, and he's suffering physically. So who would not take the time and say, okay, what do I need to do to pull myself out of this financial mess, or out of this health mess? Who won't take the time to think thoughts, to be spared. Ayla zois, this kind of sin, gam ein hatayva sibasa. Desire is not the cause. Pliya hi ha'aver halazu. This type of sin is a wonder. V'zeh shema. This is its name. Pilai, wonder. Levli soim alev. This kind of sin is without placing to heart lehizboinen b'yiras Hashem, to contemplate fear of sin, HaMussar anshai. Averos elu, these kinds of sins, lo yuchlu heyois misug harishain, are not from the first category. Yan, because ein dai b'hisava liyos sibasan. Desire is not strong enough for it to be its cause. I'm going to give you an example. You ready? This is a prime example. People who talk by davening. It's not because of taiva. No. Because they're social, you have people who are social hermits. They can't even look you in the eye and say good Shabbos to you. They have nothing to talk about when you sit with them at a kiddush. They're completely blank face and glary-eyed when you meet them on the street. They don't say hello, they don't say goodbye, they don't say shalom aleichem, they don't even know your name, they don't even know their own name. And all of a sudden during davening they become social butterflies. What happened? It's not taiva. They don't want to speak. They have nothing to talk about. They classify themselves as antisocial. The answer is, this is the second category. Rak hein miruchnias hatuma. This is a spiritual contamination, hamelafefes es ha'adam lahachtiyai, that seduces a person to sin. It induces man to sin, basically, even though, well, for example, you have someone who drinks dam. Now, most people don't drink dam. Why would somebody drink dam? There's no taiva for it. The answer is, there is, aside from passion and desire, there is a force of impurity that just makes people do the wrong thing. You could have people who they don't eat anything. They don't eat the whole day. But what do? They'll eat before Shacharis, or they'll eat non-kosher food. Why? It's just a force of impurity. It's the Yetzer Hara. There is such a thing. It's called the Yetzer Hara. Uviyoyser b'chete hadibor. This is all the more so in the sin of speech, Lashon Hara. This is a famous principle of the Gra. There is no taiva to speak Lashon Hara. There's no desire. There's no passion. It doesn't give anybody any sensation. It is purely a spiritual contamination that induces a person to sin. Kima yisroin labala lashon. You want to eat treif? Okay, it tastes good. It gives you a good sensation in your palate. Arayos, you have pleasure for a moment. Ritzicha, you have no, but dvarim asurim, there is no taiva at all. It's purely the Yetzer Hara. Kamaimer Chazal, like Chazal tell us. So basically, the two kinds of sins. There's sins that come from taiva, and there's sins that come from a force of impurity. And Rabbi Yisrael famously uses this to answer a historic chakira. The shaila is, what is the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov? Is the Yetzer Hara passion, desire, and the Yetzer Tov seichel hayashar? In other words, the Yetzer Hara says, do what is sweet and enjoyable now, and the Yetzer Tov says, no, do what is prudent and wise for the future? Or is the Yetzer Tov some kind of spiritual force that makes you sin, and the Yetzer Tov a spiritual force that induces you to do the right thing? And Rabbi Yisrael famously is machriya this chakira, and he says, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Rabbi Yisrael famously learns that every human being has two Yetzer Haras and two Yetzer Tovs. You have desire and passion, and there is a force that just makes a person sin. There is a element of seichel that argues that one should do what is wise for the future, and then there is a spirit of purity that brings you to do what is good spiritually. And this is sort of the next segment of the Iggeres HaMussar, determining once and for all, like halacha l'maisa, what is the Yetzer Tov and what is the Yetzer Hara. Okay, Bez Hashem, we will pick this up tomorrow, and wishing everyone a great rest of the day. Kol Tov. Kol Tov, have a good day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.